Can people really see the future? Receive messages from across time and space?
His accuracy is certainly a key to his longevity, there's no doubt about that. There are enough quatrains that are so stunningly accurate.
Nostradamus, the 16th century French astrologer and physician, is best known for his cryptic quatrains that many believe predict future events. His writings have captivated people for centuries due to their enigmatic nature, leaving room for multiple interpretations. In today's turbulent world, some see his prophecies as eerily relevant to global issues such as climate change, conflict, and technological advances.
Nostradamus had become initially famous as an almanac writer. You've got to understand that this is during the time of the printing revolution, and he was one of its first best-selling authors. Then he embarked on a history of the future.
Could Nostradamus have foreseen what's unfolding in our modern age? Let's explore. The enigma of Nostradamus's prophecies. Nostradamus wrote his famed prophecies in the form of quatrains, 4-line verses, deliberately cryptic and full of symbolism. Written in archaic French, these quatrains are peppered with references to mythology, astrology, and historical events, making them open to countless interpretations. While some scholars believe his prophecies were based on historical cycles and events he studied, others argue that his predictions are purposefully vague, allowing them to be applied to many different situations across time. The ambiguity in Nostradamus's writings has fueled fascination for centuries. Because the quatrains avoid specific dates or names, they leave a lot of room for subjective interpretation. This has led to people reading into his predictions during times of crisis or uncertainty. For instance, after major events like 9/11, World War II, and even the COVID-19 pandemic, many have turned to Nostradamus's work, claiming that his quatrains foretold these disasters: climate change and rising seas. One of the most discussed quatrains when it comes to modern times is quatrain 117, which reads, "For 40 years the rainbow will not be seen. For 40 years it will be seen every day. The dry earth will grow more parched, and great floods when it will be seen." This quatrain is often interpreted as a reference to climate change and the environmental issues humanity faces today. The imagery of the rainbow not being seen for a prolonged period is viewed by some as a metaphor for drought, while its daily appearance later could symbolize intense rainfall, possibly linked to climate extremes. Nostradamus seems to suggest that the Earth will face periods of extreme dryness, followed by catastrophic floods, events that are becoming more common in the face of global warming. In recent years, the world has witnessed increasingly erratic weather patterns. Rising global temperatures have caused glaciers to melt at unprecedented rates, leading to rising sea levels. In fact, entire island nations like the Maldives are at risk of disappearing due to rising seas. Cities like Miami and Venice regularly battle with flooding even during sunny days due to rising tides. World War III fears. One of Nostradamus's quatrains that is often linked to fears of World War III is quatrain 983, which reads, "The great city will be thoroughly desolated of the inhabitants, not a single one will remain. Wall, sex, temple, and virgin violated. Through sword, fire, plague, cannon, people will die." This chilling quatrain describing desolation, destruction, and death on a massive scale has led some to interpret it as a forewarning of a catastrophic global conflict, potentially a third world war. The mention of swords, fire, and cannons evokes images of warfare, while plague could also symbolize modern biological or chemical weapons. The level of destruction Nostradamus describes points to a large-scale disaster that many believe could reflect the horrors of modern warfare, especially considering the destructive capabilities of nuclear weapons today. In 2025, the fear of a global conflict remains a real concern. Geopolitical tensions are brewing in various regions of the world, from the ongoing military and political friction between NATO countries and Russia to tensions between China and the United States over Taiwan and the South China Sea. Add to this the ongoing conflict in the Middle East, and it's easy to see why some believe the world could be on the brink of another major conflict. The war in Ukraine, which began in 2022, has only heightened fears of further escalation in Europe. As countries continue to bolster their military arsenals and form alliances, many analysts warn that small conflicts or territorial disputes could easily spiral into something far bigger.
Perhaps some of it will depend on what happens on the ground this year during the war. I guess we'll have to see.
With major world powers entangled in these regional conflicts, it's no wonder that people are looking back to Nostradamus' ominous quatrains to find signs of what might come next. Economic collapse predictions, quatrain 8 verse 28, which reads, "The copies of gold and silver inflated, which after the theft were thrown into the lake, at the discovery that all is exhausted and dissipated by debt, all scripts and bonds will be wiped out." This quatrain has often been tied to predictions of financial crises, particularly those involving inflation and debt. The mention of gold and silver inflated evokes the idea of currencies being devalued, and the reference to debt being dissipated could be seen as a metaphor for economic collapse. Interpreters link this quatrain to financial instability and the potential for a future global economic crisis, especially given the world's rising debt levels and increasing reliance on speculative assets. In modern times, financial collapses have been a recurring concern, particularly with the global economy's dependence on interconnected markets. The financial crisis of 2008 serves as a prime example of how quickly things can spiral out of control, with stock markets crashing, unemployment skyrocketing, and millions losing their homes. In the years since, many nations have been accumulating debt at alarming rates, with countries like the United States and China at the forefront. As we move into 2025, economic uncertainty remains high. The effects of the COVID-19 pandemic are still lingering in many economies, while inflation and housing market bubbles are growing concerns. In addition, the rapid growth of cryptocurrencies and other digital assets has created a speculative financial environment, with many experts warning that these markets could collapse without warning. Artificial intelligence and automation, quatrain 334 reads, "The machines of flying fire will make an invasion. The nations of the world will be helpless and weak, more powerful than before. The rule of steel, mankind will be diminished, brought to their knees." This quatrain is often interpreted as a reference to the rise of machines and artificial intelligence, AI. The machines of flying fire can be seen as a metaphor for advanced technologies, perhaps drones or autonomous machines, while the idea that mankind will be diminished suggests that human power and control may be overtaken by technological advancements. In 2025, AI and automation continue to advance rapidly, transforming industries and reshaping society. We've seen remarkable progress in AI-driven tools, from self-driving cars to robotic manufacturing. AI has revolutionized data analysis, healthcare, and even the creative arts, with machines able to generate music, artwork, and writing. However, this rapid growth also brings fear. As AI becomes more integrated into our lives, concerns about its overreach grow.
The world is waking up to the potential and the dangers of the most advanced forms of artificial intelligence.
From job displacement due to automation to ethical dilemmas about machine decision-making, society grapples with AI's increasing dominance. Some experts warn about the potential for AI to evolve beyond human control, with dystopian scenarios often imagined in popular culture. Resource shortages and famine, quatrain 275 reads, "No abbots, monks, no novices to learn. Honey shall cost far more than candle wax. So high the price of wheat that man is stirred his fellow man to eat in his despair." This quatrain is often interpreted as a warning of future resource shortages, particularly related to food scarcity and famine. The mention of honey and wheat becoming expensive reflects a world where basic food items become inaccessible, leading to desperation. The ominous note about man stirring his fellow man to eat conjures up images of extreme famine, where the lack of resources drives society to its breaking point. In today's world, concerns about food security are very real. Global population growth, climate change, and unsustainable agricultural practices are straining food systems. By 2025, the global population is projected to reach nearly 8.2 billion people, putting increasing pressure on the world's food supply. Overpopulation, especially in regions with limited access to food, creates severe challenges for governments and international organizations trying to meet the demand. Additionally, the impact of climate change on agriculture is significant. Unpredictable weather patterns, droughts, floods, and other natural disasters are making it harder for farmers to produce consistent and reliable crop yields. The Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, IPCC, has warned that global warming is already affecting food production, with certain regions facing increasingly difficult conditions to grow staple crops like wheat, rice, and corn. Assassination of a global leader. Quatrain 160 reads, "An emperor shall be killed by his own people, but neither knowing how nor why. The kingdom collapses to great sorrow, blood flows, the great river turns red." This quatrain is often associated with the assassination of a significant political leader, an event that can cause immense turmoil in a nation or even globally. The idea of a leader being betrayed or killed by their own people reflects political instability, a theme that has recurred throughout history. The metaphor of blood flowing and rivers turning red suggests widespread violence or chaos following such an event. Historically, political assassinations have often marked turning points in global affairs. The assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand in 1914, for example, is famously seen as the spark that ignited World War I. More recently, the assassinations of figures like President John F. Kennedy and Martin Luther King Jr. in the 1960s shook not only the United States, but also the entire world, creating ripples of political and social unrest. In 2025, fears of political assassinations and their potential fallout remain real. Several global leaders are at the center of political tensions, with protests, civil unrest, and even violence directed at governments becoming more frequent in various regions. Countries with ongoing political turmoil, such as Venezuela, Myanmar, and parts of the Middle East, are at particular risk of seeing leadership changes through violent means. Space exploration advancements. Quatrain 697 reads, "The sky will burn at 45 degrees, fire approaches the great new city. Immediately a huge, scattered flame leaps up when they want to have proof of the Normans." While the quatrain's imagery is cryptic, some interpreters see it as a reference to advancements in space exploration and humanity's quest to explore beyond Earth. The sky will burn has been linked to the idea of space travel, with rockets piercing the atmosphere and fire accompanying their ascent. The phrase "scattered flame" could refer to the fiery trail left by spacecraft or even the explosive nature of launching into space. In 2025, space exploration is entering an exciting era, with both governmental and private organizations pushing the boundaries of what is possible. Space missions by NASA, the European Space Agency, ESA, and private companies like SpaceX and Blue Origin are making headlines. Humanity's drive to explore the stars is fueled by the desire for discovery, scientific research, and even the eventual colonization of other planets. Currently, missions to Mars remain at the forefront of space exploration. NASA's Perseverance rover is already on Mars collecting samples and data, while future missions aim to send humans to the Red Planet. SpaceX, led by Elon Musk, is working on its Starship spacecraft designed to carry astronauts to Mars and beyond. The vision of establishing a human settlement on Mars, once a distant dream, is now becoming a tangible goal for the coming decades. Religious conflicts. Quatrain 381 reads, "The great city will be troubled by the army. The black and the white will face each other in combat. The great one shall be thrown into the fire. The barbarian will destroy the city and walls." This quatrain is often interpreted as a reference to religious conflicts symbolized by the black and white facing off in battle, which could signify opposing religious or cultural groups. Throughout history, religious tensions have sparked numerous conflicts, and Nostradamus' quatrain taps into this age-old struggle between different faiths. Religious conflicts have been a recurring theme in global history, from the Crusades in the Middle Ages to more recent clashes in the 20th and 21st centuries. The Israeli-Palestinian conflict, for instance, remains one of the most deeply rooted and ongoing religious conflicts in modern times. The battle for control over sacred land and the desire for statehood has fueled violence for decades, with no clear resolution in sight. Similarly, religious divisions have contributed to conflicts in places like Northern Ireland, where Protestant and Catholic communities have been at odds for much of the 20th century. Though the violence has largely subsided, the tension remains part of the cultural landscape. In more recent times, religious tensions have flared up in regions such as the Middle East and parts of Asia. Extremist groups like ISIS have used religion to justify acts of violence and terror targeting people of different faiths. In Myanmar, the Rohingya crisis, where a Muslim minority has been persecuted by the Buddhist majority, is another painful reminder of the destructive potential of religious division. Rise of a Dictator, Quatrain 395 reads, "The newly elected one, his reign of terror shall begin, will be seen as unjust by those under his command. No one shall dare oppose his rule, the people oppressed, their freedom banned." This quatrain is frequently interpreted as a warning about the rise of authoritarian leaders or dictators. The phrase "newly elected one" suggests that this leader may come to power through legitimate means, such as an election, only to establish an oppressive regime. The description of a reign of terror and the suppression of freedom resonates with modern fears of authoritarianism emerging under the guise of democracy. In recent years, the world has witnessed a concerning trend where some leaders, once democratically elected, have taken steps to consolidate power and undermine democratic institutions. In countries like Hungary and Turkey, leaders have eroded judicial independence, restricted press freedom, and expanded executive power. These developments raise fears of soft dictatorships where the mechanisms of democracy are used to mask increasingly authoritarian rule. Additionally, political unrest and economic instability have created fertile ground for the rise of populist leaders who capitalize on public dissatisfaction. These leaders often promise to restore order or bring back greatness, but their rule frequently leads to the curtailing of civil liberties and democratic processes. The idea of a reign of terror can be applied to regimes that use fear and violence to silence opposition, quashing protests, and stifling dissent. Nuclear warfare concerns, Quatrain 467 reads, "The sky will appear dark over the great new city, the sun and the air will become poison, the great one shall fall by the people's force, a secret shall be buried, a fire unseen." This quatrain is often interpreted as a reference to nuclear warfare, with the phrase, "the sky will appear dark," evoking the image of a mushroom cloud or the aftermath of a nuclear explosion. The idea that the sun and air will become poison could symbolize radiation, fallout, and ever-present danger in the event of nuclear conflict. The quatrain's depiction of mass destruction fits the modern understanding of nuclear warfare's devastating potential. The fear of nuclear war has persisted since the development of nuclear weapons in the mid-20th century, and while the Cold War ended decades ago, nuclear weapons remain a significant threat to global peace. Countries like the United States, Russia, China, India, Pakistan, North Korea, and others maintain nuclear arsenals, leading to ongoing concerns about potential conflict. Efforts to control and reduce nuclear weapons have been a central focus of international diplomacy for decades. Treaties like the Non-Proliferation Treaty, NPT, aim to prevent the spread of nuclear weapons and promote disarmament. However, despite these efforts, tensions around nuclear capabilities remain high. In recent years, North Korea's continued development of its nuclear program and missile testing have raised alarms globally. The US-North Korea negotiations have had limited success, leaving the threat of nuclear escalation in East Asia very real. Similarly, the US withdrawal from the Iran nuclear deal in 2018 has created ongoing concerns about Iran's potential to develop nuclear weapons. Diplomatic efforts to renew the deal have been met with challenges, and tensions remain high in the Middle East over the possibility of nuclear proliferation. environmental destruction and degradation. Quatrain 165 reads, "The great mountains shall crumble, the earth's foundation will be shaken, the water shall rise to great heights, and the land will weep for what it has lost." This quatrain is often interpreted as a warning of environmental destruction and the degradation of the earth. The imagery of crumbling mountains, rising water, and a shaken foundation speaks to the irreversible damage humans are inflicting on the planet. In 2025, environmental concerns are more pressing than ever, with deforestation, pollution, and climate change threatening ecosystems and human livelihoods alike. Deforestation is one of the most severe environmental challenges the world faces today. In regions like the Amazon rainforest, deforestation is occurring at alarming rates, driven by logging, agriculture, and urban expansion. The Amazon is often referred to as the lungs of the earth, due to its role in producing oxygen and absorbing carbon dioxide. However, as vast areas of forest are cleared, not only is this natural balance disrupted, but countless species are losing their habitats, pushing biodiversity to the brink of collapse. Nostradamus' imagery of the land weeping reflects the sadness and irreversible consequences of this loss. Pollution both on land and in the oceans is another contributor to environmental degradation. Industrial waste, plastic, and harmful chemicals are contaminating ecosystems, impacting wildlife and human health. In the oceans, plastic pollution has reached catastrophic levels, forming enormous garbage patches and affecting marine life. In addition, air pollution in major cities has reached dangerous levels, contributing to respiratory illnesses and climate change. The great water mentioned in the quatrain could be seen as a metaphor for rising sea levels and polluted oceans, further exacerbating the environmental crisis. Political instability in Europe. Quatrain 513 reads, "The great city will be in great distress, unable to keep its people under rule. The city will be divided, revolts will rise, its future uncertain, Europe in turmoil." This quatrain is often linked to political instability in Europe, a region that has seen its fair share of upheaval throughout history. In recent years, events like Brexit, economic challenges, and the growing tensions within the European Union (EU) have fueled speculation about Europe's political future. Nostradamus' vision of a divided and distressed city can be interpreted as a metaphor for the political fragmentation that Europe is currently experiencing. Brexit, the United Kingdom's decision to leave the EU, has been one of the most significant political developments in Europe in recent decades. The decision created deep divisions within the UK and across Europe, leading to years of political and economic uncertainty. The aftermath of Brexit has left the UK facing numerous challenges, from trade disruptions to labour shortages, while the EU grapples with maintaining unity among its remaining member states. Economic challenges also plague Europe, particularly in countries like Greece, Italy, and Spain, where debt crises and economic stagnation have caused political unrest. In many European nations, populist movements have gained traction, fueled by discontent over economic inequality, immigration policies, and dissatisfaction with traditional political parties. These movements often challenge the EU's core principles, creating further tension within the bloc. A major city under siege. Quatrain 1089 reads, "One day the two great leaders shall be friends, their great power shall be seen to grow. The new city will be under siege, then their power will be tested in great war." This quatrain has often been interpreted as a prediction of a major city coming under siege or destruction due to a large-scale conflict. While Nostradamus does not specify which city, the imagery of a new city facing an attack or siege has led many to speculate about modern urban centers that might be vulnerable to conflict. Throughout history, cities have often been the focal points of wars and sieges, from the destruction of ancient cities like Troy and Carthage to more modern examples such as the siege of Leningrad during World War II. The concept of urban centers under siege is not new. In modern times, the quatrain's warning of a new city could be interpreted to refer to a major global city like New York, London, or perhaps a developing metropolitan hub in the Middle East or Asia. In recent years, conflicts in places like Syria and Ukraine have shown the devastating impact of war on major cities. The siege of Aleppo during the Syrian civil war from 2012 to 2016 resulted in massive destruction, with large portions of the city reduced to rubble and thousands of civilians caught in the crossfire. Similarly, in the ongoing war in Ukraine, cities like Mariupol and Kiev have faced sieges and heavy bombardment, leading to significant civilian casualties and widespread destruction. Middle Eastern conflicts. Quatrain 941 reads, "The great city shall be brought low by violence. The Arab people rise and seek vengeance. Blood shall be shed and a great leader shall fall. War and discord spread across the region." This quatrain is often seen as a prediction of ongoing tensions and conflicts in the Middle East, a region that has been plagued by political and military strife for centuries. The reference to Arab people and the fall of a great leader has led many to interpret this quatrain as being directly tied to the wars, uprisings, and political turmoil that have shaped the modern Middle East. Since the turn of the 21st century, the Middle East has been a hotbed of conflict, from the US-led invasion of Iraq in 2003 to the Arab Spring uprisings that swept across the region in 2011. The Middle East has experienced significant political upheaval and violence. The overthrow of leaders like Saddam Hussein in Iraq and Muammar Gaddafi in Libya are examples of how great leaders have fallen, leaving power vacuums that have often been filled with violence and instability. The Syrian civil war, which began in 2011, has also led to the displacement of millions of people and the destruction of cities like Aleppo and Homs. The rise of ISIS in the region further fueled conflict, spreading war and discord across Iraq, Syria, and beyond. Quatrain 941's reference to blood being shed echoes the devastating toll that these wars have taken on civilians and the deep divisions that persist between various factions and countries in the region. Cyber attacks and digital warfare. Quatrain 531 reads, "The king shall send his forces to the fields, fire and steel shall rain from the sky, but the great kingdom will fall without a fight, the secret enemies work unseen within." This quatrain is often linked to the idea of cyber attacks and digital warfare. The phrase "fire and steel shall rain from the sky" traditionally suggests a physical attack, but in the modern age, this could be interpreted as the fallout from cyber attacks targeting critical infrastructure. "The great kingdom will fall without a fight" seems to hint at the fact that future warfare might not always involve traditional combat, but could instead take the form of unseen digital sabotage. In today's world, the rise of cyber warfare has become one of the most pressing security concerns for nations. Hackers, often backed by state actors, have been targeting essential infrastructure such as power grids, financial institutions, and government databases. Unlike traditional warfare, cyber attacks can disable critical systems without a single shot being fired, causing chaos and disruption on a national scale. A prominent example of cyber warfare was the Stuxnet virus, which was used to disrupt Iran's nuclear program in the late 2000s. This highly sophisticated cyber attack showcased the potential for digital weapons to cause real-world damage. In 2020, cyber attacks targeted healthcare systems in several countries during the COVID-19 pandemic, highlighting the vulnerability of even critical sectors in times of crisis. Global water crisis. Quatrain 245 reads, "The waters shall rise and cover the great lands, the rivers shall dry and the fields will die. The people shall cry searching for water, for a drought shall spread far and wide." This quatrain is often interpreted as a reference to future water shortages and the global water crisis. While the imagery of rising waters suggests flooding, the latter lines about drying rivers and drought hint at the dual extremes of water-related disasters, too much in some areas and not enough in others. Water scarcity is already a critical issue in many parts of the world. Regions like the Middle East, North Africa, and parts of South Asia are facing severe water shortages due to a combination of climate change, overpopulation, and poor water management. The over-extraction of groundwater and pollution of water sources have exacerbated the problem, making clean drinking water increasingly scarce in many areas. By 2025, it is estimated that nearly 2/3 of the world's population may face water shortages. This has the potential to spark conflicts over water resources as nations and communities compete for access to this essential resource. The term water wars has been used to describe potential future conflicts, particularly in regions where water is already a scarce and valuable commodity. Breakthroughs in medicine. Quatrain 3.75 reads, "The long-awaited cure shall be found, a great advancement shall come from the north. Those who once suffered shall rejoice, their lifespans extended, their pain gone." This quatrain is often linked to future breakthroughs in medicine, particularly the discovery of cures for diseases that have long plagued humanity. The mention of a great advancement coming from the north could be seen as a reference to medical or scientific discoveries emerging from developed nations known for leading the charge in medical research. Recent advancements in medicine have already brought about significant changes in healthcare. The development of mRNA vaccines, for example, was accelerated during the COVID-19 pandemic, showcasing the potential for rapid breakthroughs in combating infectious diseases. This new technology is now being explored as a potential treatment for other diseases, including certain cancers. The idea of a long-awaited cure could relate to these ongoing efforts to tackle some of the most stubborn diseases that humanity has faced. In addition to mRNA technology, advancements in gene editing tools like CRISPR have opened new doors for treating genetic disorders. Scientists are now exploring ways to use CRISPR to cure diseases like sickle cell anemia, muscular dystrophy, and even certain forms of blindness. These developments could fulfill Nostradamus' vision of a cure that eliminates suffering and extends lifespans. Another area of exciting medical advancement is in the field of regenerative medicine. Stem cell research is showing promising results in regenerating damaged tissues and organs, offering hope for people with chronic diseases or those who have suffered injuries. The possibility of growing new organs for transplant patients or reversing the effects of diseases like Alzheimer's could lead to the type of life-extending breakthroughs mentioned in Nostradamus.